Hello and welcome to Mindscast 445. In this video we're going to walk through creating a simple Laravel application. It's simpler than the cats example in the book we're following because we have only one table. And for this video I will walk through the setup up to the point of having a displayed list of books. The rest of the functionality will be covered in a separate tutorial. First we need to create a skeleton for our application. We'll use Composer and the create project command. Laravel preferred dist will get us a fresh copy of Laravel, and our project will be named Books. This will take a few minutes. So let's look at the file structure that's created, and specifically let's go into the app directory. The directories of interest to us are going to be config. This is really for the first time setup. We want to make sure our application is set up correctly. Database is where we'll set our migrations, which create the tables, and seeds where we'll add data to the tables. Models is where we'll define the PHP classes that map to our database tables. Storage is one to be aware of. That's where the log files are stored, which can be very helpful for debugging. Views is where we create the pages that the users will see. Controllers and tests are also interesting, but we won't be covering them in this video. We want to first update the database.php file, which is under the config directory. And specifically what we're interested in is we are not going to use MySQL, we are going to use SQLite. We also want to update app.php in the config file, and we specifically want to set debug to true. If we forget to do that, if there are any errors, we get some very informative message like, whoops, an error occurred. So now we want to bring up a web server just to see what we've got so far. We'll first cd into the directory containing our app, which is Books. And then we're going to use the artisan command line interface that comes with Laravel. And we're specifically going to use the serve. So we're starting up a web server. And notice that it's going to be on port 8000. So we bring up Firefox. Notice I've typed the URL into the box up here. I click return, and you have arrived. This is the Laravel logo. Okay, so now we're ready to begin our app, and we're going to start by creating a model for our simple book table. Notice that within the models directory we do create a file called book.php. We must begin with the PHP tag. I've forgotten that a few times, and then Laravel cannot recognize the class. So here we have class book extends Eloquent. Eloquent is the active record implementation that associates a database table with a PHP class. And since we named our class book, that means the database table will be named Books. Eloquent assumes that each table has an ID, which is a primary key, and it also stores an updated at and created at timestamp. We don't care about those, so we just set timestamps to false. And then we also need to tell Eloquent what fields can be filled by mass assignment, and in our case we have two. We are going to just use title and author for our books. So the model class is used when we access fields via the web page, but we also need to set up those tables in the database, and for that we'll use migrations. So we do this from the command line, and I often bring up a second command prompt so that I can leave the local host running. And notice I've got a batch file that quickly takes me to the correct location. Now we're again going to use PHP artisan. The command this time is migrate. We give it the make command. Then we want to give the migration a name. It should be something that's self-explanatory. So in our case we're just going to say add books table. And this will take a minute. So within the database directory there are two subfolders, migrations and seeds, and we'll use both of those, but for now let's look at migrations. And here's the add books table.php, which we just created. Notice that it prefixes it with a date and a unique identifier. So within the migration, Laravel provides both an up and a down function to run and reverse the migration. Within the up I have filled in the schema create function. Notice there's our table name, and we have a function which we pass the table in, and we create an auto increment primary key ID and two strings named title and author. The down function simply drops the table named books. So now we need to run the migration, and we use artisan again for this. We'll answer yes, that we really want to run the command. And it appears to have added the books table. How do we know that this worked? Well, there is a phpMyAdmin for SQLite, which we will cover in another video. So now we want to add some initial data to the table. This is known as seeding the table, and we create within the seeds directory a books table seeder PHP file. Of course, remember the PHP tag. We have a run method, and the first thing is to delete any books which already exist, so we start with a clean slate. Then we simply insert an array. In this case, I have 3 books I'm inserting, and notice that we've assigned the ID, title, and author for each of those books. To get this to run, there is a file that comes with Laravel called database seeder, and notice we simply add this call to the books table seeder within the database seeder.php file. So to run this, we again return to the command line, and we use artisan command db:/seed. Tell it yes, we want to run the command, and now we've added the data to our books table. Now that the database is created, we'll start on our application, and most of this will happen in the Views folder. I have already copied in a directory named Books and created a master blade template. This is going to be to create a template for all of our web pages. So here's the master blade file. It's very similar to the template provided in the Getting Started with Laravel book that we're using. Notice that I've changed the title to Books App. Here's the CSS file. Each page will have a container, and within that we will have a header, potentially a message, and the content. Notice the use of yield, which is how we are able to insert the code from our specific views into this template. In this video, we're only going to create the index for our application, which is stored in index.blade.php under the books directory. Notice that we bring in the master template by extending it. We're going to have 2 sections, the header and the content. We saw those in the template. Within the header, of course, we have an H2 as we would expect, and then we have a URL to books/create, which is styled as a button. This allows us to add a new book. And then within the body, we're going to go through a list of books, and for each book, we're going to have a link. Notice that that's going to create a URL to books/ and then the book ID. And it will then list the title and the author of the book. Notice the blade syntax with the double curly braces. And again, we are going to do those additional URLs in the next video. For now, we just end the for each, and notice that each section has to have a stop. So how do we actually display our index page? Well, we need to add a route, and this is done within routes.php, which is beneath the app directory. And I've again gone ahead and added some things to it. This sets up a parameter book, which is going to be associated with our book model. We won't really need that for these routes, but that will be useful for the next video. And then we're going to map 2 different routes to the same index page. You can either type a / or books. Either way, you're going to get to this point. Notice that these are both using the HTTP verb get. And the first thing we do is we collect a list of all the books. We again use the eloquent syntax here to get all of the books, put that in a variable named books, and then we make the view books/index with books and passing in this variable. You may recall that we had that variable used within the for each in the index file. So now it's time to try it. We've returned to our browser, and we will refresh the page. And there are our books. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.